who's eligible. That's a big important question for people. If you're chartered by the Board of Regents, if you also are accepted by the Regents under a not-for-profit sections or ed law, or registered with Office of Charities or not-for-profit. So basically, the only ones who are not eligible are the 10 research libraries that receive statutory aid for preservation. And those are the 10 largest research collections in the state. And religious organizations who are wholly religious, they are not eligible under this. So if you're not sure if you're eligible or not, give us a call, give Lauren a call, and they'll work that out for you and help you get through that. This is the folks who are not. So, and New York State agencies always forget, so New York State historic sites, the SUNYs are eligible except for the 4 SUNY research centers because they receive statutory aid. So again, if you're not sure, just give us a call and we can figure out if you're eligible or not. So we have a lot of different types of projects and expenses that are eligible under this program. It's a maximum of $45,000 for a 1-year grant. We do fund some personnel costs, but it can't be your permanent staff costs. It would be things like we're hiring someone to help us rehouse a collection, hiring that person to do the work. That would be eligible, but saying, oh, we want to charge 10% of my salary to the grant, no. If you're part-time and you work additional hours during the grant period, you can ask for funding for those additional hours. But the point is not to try to supplant staff salaries here. We really don't want to, this is a small grant program and we really want it to go towards the preservation of the collections. Service and consultant contracts, we do fund, if you're using, say, a conservator to conserve materials, you can charge that to the grant. If you were purchasing a bunch of housing materials to rehouse an archival or a photograph collection, that's eligible. Trying to think of what else. People still do some microfilming. We pay for that. We do not pay for digitization. We consider that an access project, not a preservation project. So they all have to, fundable activities and then the fundable expenditures all have to work together. So it's really focusing on preserving the collections, what is going to actually impact the collections. So again, if you're not sure I would say if you're thinking of writing a grant for this fall, talk to Lauren first about your project and sort of go over it and you guys can discuss it. Ineligible general operating expenses. We don't do indirect costs or overhead charges. Again, that would take up so much of the grant award. Acquisitions of library research materials, capital expenditures. The only thing for capital expenditures we fund is if you have a room that's sort of your local history room or your archives room, your special collections, and you want to create a separate HVAC system for that space, we will fund that. So the first step would be to hire someone who is a specialist in creating HVAC systems for libraries and museums, not your local heating company won't do it. And this consultant will help you design a system. They'll come on site, see all what you've got and help you design the system. And then the second year or third year, you would be asking for the cost in which to do that work. And depending on the size of your the room, 45 is a lot. We don't pay to re-air condition the whole building because that would be for people, not for collections. We don't provide standard library shelving, but if, for example, you were housing a large collection of maps or architectural drawings, you can request the cost of map cases from us to rehouse them in, things like that. But, standard shelving and file cabinets, no. If you had some large oversized like folios that you were treating and you wanted to buy shelving that would actually hold them, because they can't fit on standard, that would be okay too. Physical processing we don't pay for. Sometimes people, if they're doing a big rehousing project, the staff time to do a lot of that is part of your institutional contribution. So as you're rehousing, sometimes they're doing some other physical processing to create some kind of intellectual control. Basic disaster planning, we don't fund. We do have a program called DHPSNY, DHPSNY.org. And that is a free program in New York State of training and workshops. And if you go to dipsny.org, you will see all the workshops that they're going to be offering in the next 6 months or so, and you can sign up for those, and they are free. They also have a YouTube channel with lots of great videos. They're on social media, and so I would suggest if you don't have some of these things, this is a good place to start. Again, we don't do microphone readers, computer equipment, all those kind of basic things. We don't fund. Sounds like a lot, but the stuff we do. So here we do. So fundable activities. We don't fund much planning and screening anymore, other than the environmental one, because we have DHPSNY. And DHPSNY also offers a bunch of different free types of surveys. They do an archival assessment. They can do preservation surveys. They can also help you write a preservation plan. So if you haven't done any of that yet, I would highly, highly recommend you visit dipsny.org first and see when the next round of surveys. We're in the middle of creating a new contract. So it might not be anything right away until later in the fall, maybe towards January probably. But that's where it will be. So I would definitely go to their site and see what you can find out at this point. Um, and then of course the initial preservation planning, but a lot of that is funded. If you needed more of an item level survey, like you have a large photograph collection, you can request just a survey of your photographs to help you identify what types of photograph processes you own and recommendations for either rehousing or reformatting. Again, we wouldn't fund digitization. We would fund if you have negatives only. We fund the creation of an inner positive and a new print. So you could get those from us. I mentioned upgrading the mechanical HVAC system because that is very different from what you would have in a home or a library or business. We don't pay for things like stopgap. We don't pay for dehumidifiers because they get turned off. Same with window air conditioners. We don't pay for anything like that because whatever you have has to go beyond 24/7, and that doesn't happen with these generally. What's really important in preserving your collections is not to have a lot of temperature and humidity fluctuations. So what we want is a system that stays stable all the time and doesn't go up and down because it's shut off on the weekends or whatever. So that's why we don't fund that. People sometimes get very upset. We still fund preservation microfilming. We still get proposals for them. If you have new newspapers that weren't part of the New York newspaper project, we will fund that. Sometimes people have large like architectural drawings, and I recommend that you do microfiche. You can do one drawing per fiche. There's a company in Pennsylvania that does that work, and they can do color as well. That is permanent color. So that's a really good way to keep people also, it preserves it. It also keeps people from using the originals as much. A lot of people have used this because they have stuff that is heavily used and they don't want users to actually touch the originals anymore. Okay. Reform and photographs to new. I've mentioned some of these. We do found the digitization of sound recordings. That's the one digital type of projects we do, we want you to meet the Grammy standards. There's, you know, some standards we expect you to follow for that. We don't fund digitization. There's nothing we can help you with videotapes or cassette tapes unless you had, say, cassette tapes of lectures or something and you got those digitized. I know videotapes and cassette tapes, they deteriorate very quickly. We're not crazy about the digital, but that's about all there is. If you do the digital, then you have to send the master or a file, the digital file, to us. You have to send us on a hard drive, and we throw those into our dark archive, which means we just put them in a file on the dark archive to sort of keep them here as well, a copy here as well. And that is outlined in the guidelines. Fundable activities, collection cleaning projects, protective enclosures. So if you had, you know, maps and you wanted to have them cleaned and repaired and then put in new folders, and then put in a new file cabinet, that's great. Major conservation treatments we fund. We don't, as I mentioned, fund these things below: basic housekeeping, physical processing, and learn by doing projects. We don't fund learn by doing. We have DIPSing to give workshops. I will say, if you want to do a major conservation treatment, you really need to have your preservation survey. You really should have that done first before you apply, because you're going to have to justify the cost of expensive treatments. We are not interested in like rebinding all your books or something like that. That's not what this is about. If you are looking for things, a couple of things we'll get to later, we ask about is the research value and rarity of the collection. So some people just want to preserve their whole collection by rebinding them, and that's not really what we're about. So we'll get to more of that. We do fund 10% could go to bibliographic activities. Usually it's for people to create a MARC record if they do microfilming or something like that. It has to be very closely connected. You know, we're not paying for the metadata or for the audio stuff. We're not paying for a lot of that. That is part of your institutional contribution. We don't have a set amount for institutional contribution. It can be staff time, but we are looking for some of that in the application through the work that you put into the project. It has to be activities that happen during the grant project, not before or after. Okay. If, for example, we do fund disaster recovery, if it happens to happen and you've got materials frozen that need work, we do cover that. We don't cover specialized training anymore. We should take that out. We have funded preservation information materials in the past. We don't get those anymore because basically everybody who ever did one, it's up on the web somewhere and it's easy to get to. NEDCC is an organization. Their web address is nedcc.org. They're in Andover, Mass. They have tons of information on their website as well. That's very helpful. We don't want people to come in for disaster plans. Disaster plan, you have to do yourself. It's really important that you're involved in your own disaster plan. And so you should really take some of the training that we have online through DIPSy to do that. We don't fund purchasing emergency supplies, creating things, getting them ready for exhibition. So we won't pay for framing and things like that, and any sort of published guidelines or catalogs. All right. I know there were some questions. Should I stop at this point?
I think that'd be a great idea.
Okay, because
I can field some of these. I'm biting my tongue because I think I know the answer to them, but why would I answer when you're here?
Okay, yeah, and I can't see.
No problem, because you've got your things. So I'll just read them out to you, okay?
Okay.
Okay, just making sure I gave the right answer. A library that's on the historic register is still eligible, right? Like that's not the same as being a historic site.
Correct. If you're not a New York State historic site, oh, there they came back.
Yep.
Then you're fine because there's lots of stuff.
So it's more like being so long as you're not a New York State agency or entity, or that's not the right way to say that. SUNYs are eligible. Okay. And then the second part of that question was, does that mean we're not eligible for these grants? I was looking to digitize our microfilm. So the answer I put in
No,
the
we
chat.
don't pay for digitize. That's an access project, not a
Yep,
preservation. Is it a newspaper? Because Meg will help you out with newspapers.
already in the chat, already in the chat.
Okay, yes, yeah.
Okay, special shelving is potentially fundable, just not standard shelving. So lockable, locking special bookshelves.
No, no, that's not, we're looking for more like if you've got large folios and you need wider shelves to support them, or map cases for large formats. I'm not sure. Um, I suppose if, I don't know why you'd want locking ones. Because we're not really funding security measures.
Yeah,
So, no.
yeah. Are you saying that things put on microforms to preserve them are eligible?
Yes,
But digitizing things that are already on microforms are not eligible.
correct. Because the microfilm is the preservation.
Yep,
Digitizing is the access.
yep. Lynn, tell
And
me if that doesn't answer your question.
yeah,
Could funds be used for public and or contracted service agreements to hire someone to digitize materials?
no. Well, if you're digitizing sound recordings, you would hire, there are vendors who do this, and you would work with them to do the work. You wouldn't hire someone to come in and just sit in your institution and digitize sound recordings. You need a special lab to do that. There's a company in Philadelphia, one of them know I'll mention is George Blood. He digitizes all kinds of formats. So, and there's another company I can't remember that's in the city, but that's where you would go for that. But one new.
All right. I think that covers all our questions. Does anyone else want to, and you're free to come off mute and just ask your question yourself also.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's like I work for a Catholic college and we are a nursing school. We're not, for example, training for the priesthood or anything like that.
Yeah.
So would we qualify or are
The,
we not qualified?
the best way to find out is find out if your institution receives Bundy aid.
I believe we do, yes.
Then you're eligible.
Okay.
Yeah. That's the first question I ask. Most people don't know what Bundy aid, but you did. So, and you get it. That's the stand, that's the filter we use. I don't, yeah,
I,
because teaching
I
nursing.
I had a question to piggyback off what Holly was just stating about digitizing audio files.
Yeah.
So for instance, we have a collection right now that has a lot of VHS tapes and cassette tapes that we want to digitize into
Mhm.
digital formats. Would that be something that would be eligible?
No, because they're moving images, right? They're moving images.
The
So,
the
yeah.
VHS tapes, but not the cassette tapes.
The cassette tapes, then you could digitize.
Just
Yes.
audio. Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
And I would talk to one of these vendors who specialize in doing this kind of work. Yeah.
All right, keep your questions coming in the chat. I'm going to let you move on, Barbara.
Okay. Yep. Holly's going to start talking about, I'm going to let you get out of there because I'm going the wrong way. She's going to talk about pre-qualification requirements. They're so fun.
Hello. Okay, hang on a sec here. Let's close out chat. All right, so in New York State, there is a pre-qualification requirement that nonprofits must complete to be able to receive state funds. So there are a few exceptions, government agencies, the SUNYs and CUNYs, and public libraries, but not association libraries. If you are an association library, you do have to pre-qualify. And I know that if anybody was on our webinar from last year, there was some question about that. We thought that perhaps association libraries were no longer going to have to pre-qualify, but that is not the case. They do need to pre-qualify. You must be pre-qualified by the application deadline. Okay, it can take you know, several weeks. So when the, you know, applications go up, you know, if you plan on applying, we suggest you start that pre-qualification process right then. If you have pre-qualified in the past, there are certain documents that you need to submit each year to maintain your status. Okay. So the grants management website has different resources to help you. Obviously, these live vendor support calls are all in the past. But if we go to the website, okay, you'll see first thing you have to do is register. And then after you register, you get pre-qualified. Now it's now done in SFS. Just because you have an SFS account does not necessarily mean
That means.
SFS is the statewide financial system. Okay. Just because you have an SFS account does not mean that you're registered. That is a different process. Going to, okay. Right, so as far as the process, you start with the registration form. Okay, and there's instructions on the website of, you know, of everything you need to put in. There is also this grants management at its.ny.gov if you need help with your registration form. The forms are all here. Okay. If you do not have a vendor ID number, okay, this is what allows you to get paid. If you do not have a vendor ID number, you're also going to want to complete the substitute W-9 form so that one gets assigned. You'll get assigned a vendor ID number.
Oh, you heard right. I'm sorry.
So then once you are registered, then you go to the pre-qualification application itself. Okay. All right. I don't know if people see that. All right, we're just gonna go on. Okay, so then once you do your application, I just want to pop in here, make this bigger. Okay, so this is the application. It tells you all the documents that you need to submit. Okay, and then you know, the answer choices and when you do and don't need to do an explanation. So you'll complete this, you will submit it, and then you will get any questions will come to you from what's called a pre-qualification specialist. Okay, and the specialist will then, you know, hopefully just approve your application and you will be pre-qualified and be eligible.
Ollie, it
Oh.
didn't switch screens. We're
did.
still looking at your slideshow.
Oh, sorry.
It's
Okay.
okay.
So I apologize for that.
Open, I think it doesn't like it. There's a message up there.
Okay. No, I think it just wasn't, it just was only sharing what was on the screen and not any window that I opened.
Yeah.
So, well, obviously in here are the links, so you'll be able to, you know, to peruse those things. There's also, different resources There's webinars that you'll be able to view, which unfortunately I can't share any of that with you right now. But that's all on the website. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to me, and I will do my best to walk you through. There's, some things that, because I'm not in the process itself, some things we might have to send you to the folks at SFS for those questions. Does anybody have any questions? Maybe they've gone through the pre-qualification.
Live to tell. Just remember, we didn't create this system.
Right. No, we're just unfortunately, bound by the requirements. So
A request to confirm that SUNYs do not need to go through pre-qualification?
that is what we've been told. One thing that I will say is when the applications open up, there is what's called an optional notice of intent. I would recommend, putting that in. One reason is when you do that, we give all of that information to our contracts unit, and they check your pre-qualification status and whether you actually need to be pre-qualified. So that's a great way for us to then be able to reach out to applicants who aren't yet pre-qualified while there's still time to actually get it done. So, anything else before we go back to Barbara and the actual fun stuff of the application?
I don't know if there's questions in the chat.
Let's see.
These all old stuff. Yeah. Nice face, Meg.
Okay,
That's it.
sorry. And yeah, I apologize for you guys not actually seeing the screens we were going to.
Doesn't allow for that because they're not actually PowerPoints, probably. Okay. Back we go. Moving heads. So this is the application. I'm going to walk you through the whole application. To kind of so you know what you're going to see and what we're going to ask you for. I would say if you're thinking of applying this fall, and besides talking to Lauren, you can start looking at all the sections of the application. So the first thing you're going to have to do is to get a username and password, and that's the link on the bottom there. And these are all on our website too. These links are all on the CP, which is part of the State Library's website. You need a username and password for this program. Don't let someone tell you you have to go somewhere else for it. There are some other programs that go through a different portal, grants portal, but we have our own separate one, and this is how you get the username and password. So if someone in your office says, oh, I have one for New York State grants, it's probably not for this. And then you can see right now, we don't have next year's application up. Can they see last year's?
They can't submit it, but they might be able to see the guidelines from
Yes.
last year.
And then we have the guidelines, a link to them on our website, correct? No, not anymore. They took it down.
Well, no, it was never linked directly through the website.
It was never linked directly through the web. I always thought we had it there so people could try it, but our IT people haven't been happy with us. So register for your username and password. It's, it's good for forever, really. So you can do this without getting pre-qualified first. And it's just a good idea to get that done and taken care of. It will, when you register, you're registering your name, but you're also registering your organization. So if you were to leave where you're currently working and go work somewhere else, you'd log in, but you'd be logging in as being at your old workplace. So you would have to get an update, probably a new username and password, I'm not sure, for that institution.
You can just update.
You can just update the institution. And you'll see why as we go through. And then you'll get an email, but usually within 24 hours. We say 48 in case you do it on the weekend. But yeah, get your stuff in. So this is what it looks like, sort of, what we're asking. Oops, sorry. We see, we used to have you can log in and they should be able to see the guidelines. We update them every year, but we don't make significant changes. So looking at the old one isn't gonna make a big difference for you. You can see previous awards, which is sometimes helpful to see if you have a specific type of project you want to do, to see if someone else did a similar project and maybe they would have some insights for you. So we have that up there. Holly talked about the pre-qualifications. It's like, whoa, stop that. All
Keep
right,
going.
there we go. So, we also, depending on what you're doing, we have other resources. We have sort of an FAQ called Program Questions and Answers, the previous awards, and then some other stuff for state aid. And we have this MWBE compliance. This is another thing that's required. So if you were going to microfilm your newspaper, some newspaper, say you're going to do some college yearbooks or something. One of the things the state of New York now wants is people to use minority and women-owned businesses as their vendors. Now, there aren't many MWB companies that do the kind of work that is needed for this program. A few people have found places to get some of the housing supplies, but that's about it. So there's a process where you ask for an exemption. And Holly's going to go over that in a little bit and explain the exemption to you and how to do that paperwork. So you're going to log in and you're going to see your institution. Oh, this is the registration form? Yeah. Sorry. And you're going to put in all this information about your organization. And it's going to ask you, so you can have more than one account per institution, but only one person in there can submit. So some people you're going to give submit, edit, and read, and other people might just have edit or read, so that if you have multiple people working on the project, they can do it, or you really would want someone to, you really want someone who hasn't been involved with the project to be the one to come in and proofread your application for you. A lot of times people say, well, I said that. Well, you didn't quite say it the way that people understood it. Or, if you're cutting and pasting, sometimes not everything goes in. So you want to have someone else involved with that. This is where you log in. This is the login page for the LD grants. Oops, sorry. I want to go back. Oh. And you're going to get a username and password from us, and you're going to sign in. It's pretty straightforward. And then you're going to see here a list. Now, depending on where you work, if you're at a public library, they may already have someone with the username and password, because if they've applied for a public library construction grant, or if if someone has gotten one to apply for one of the state archives, their local government records improvement fund grants, you might see these here as well. So this is for the Office of Cultural Education. We use this for more than one program, but you're going to click on the preservation discretionary application. You're going to see on the left here links to some of these it can take you back to the Preservation Works website or the CP workshops. So you're going to see some different things here that you can go to. You're going to see here, once you go in, you're going to see previous applications that you've put in to us. So you'll see those. If someone ever applied to this program before, you're going to see those. Up here are the guidelines. It's a Word document. It's kind of repeating in more detail everything we've said to you today. We do allow cooperative applications. So if you were doing housing, you want to rehouse photographs, and another institution near that also wants to do the same thing, And if you order together, you get a better price. You could put in a joint application. It's a little harder, not hard, but it takes a little more finesse, but it can be done. And then you're going to click here to create a new application is what you then want to do. And here's the drop down of all the sections of the application. So you are going to apply for this. Everything you send us except your FS10 forms are all going to be created and submitted within this portal. And when the project is done, everything except the FS10F forms are all going to be created and submitted to us through this portal. So you see the initial applications, and then you see the final reports. So it's kind of a one-stop shopping. You'll be able to save this. You can print it up if you want, but you can log back in. You can work on it, log out, come back, work on it some more. I just went through when I was going through the retirement program with OGI, state retirement, you can't save and come back in. All your information is erased. So we have a checklist to remind you of all the things you need to do. We have a cover sheet. We'll go through that. Project narrative, project budget, your institutional authorization form, and your FS10 forms. You can also upload. I think this shows us. Nope, doesn't. Sorry. You can also we have a place where you can upload attachments and anything you want us to see. So if you had a preservation survey, you could upload this here so we could see it. If you're going to upload all of any estimates or vendor proposals, you're going to upload those to the system. There are some other forms that you might have to sign off on depending on your project. You're going to upload all of those. A lot of times when people are doing a preservation treatment, they will give us examples of the materials to show us what condition they're in and why. And then as part of their final report, they show us sort of the after. So we get the before and after, which are really nice for us to get and look at and be able to sometimes show people around here about all the great things this is done with this program. And here's the final report checklist. You should understand you're going to have to fill out the final report narrative outlining everything that happened, what you achieved during the project, any snafus you had and how you handled them, and then you're going to submit your final expenses. This program is paid out at what we call a 90-10 payment, which means when your application is approved and we're ready to pay, you will get 90% of your project award amount at the start of the program. When you submit your final report and that's approved, you get the final 10%. So we don't pay everything all up front. And then you can do more uploads as well, like afterwards. And then the FS10A forms are created for you, and the FS10 forms through this portal. So you're not creating those separately. Sometimes people try to do that and then they send us the wrong forms. They're created through this portal. You print it out and you give us 3 copies, each one signed in blue ink. Our finance office wants original signature, so they're very picky about that. So please make sure that you follow all those directions and get that into us. Again, if you have problems with this, give Holly a call. And here you have a place where you can go either look at it in HTML or PDF and print it out if you want to. Cover sheet. So this will be pre-filled for you, which is why it's important that you understand that your name is linked to your organization. One of the things we found, unfortunately, is a lot of people didn't know the legal name of their organization, and we have to use the legal name, not the popular name. If anything here looks wrong, let Holly know, and we will look into that and see if there's something that needs to be changed. Sometimes people have moved. There may be a record in here because you received some other grant in the past from either us or somebody else in SED. So things may have changed since then. So we use something called SEDREF, which is the State Education Department's database that keeps track of everybody we've given funds to. So if you don't if you're, that's when you fill out, okay, when do they get into said ref? Ollie, is that when they fill out the W-9 or beforehand?
So if your organization isn't in said ref,
Right.
when you apply for a username and password, we're going to send you some additional forms to fill out so that we can also add you into said ref.
Yeah.
We can't get you an account without you first being into being in said ref, because that's how we link up your account to your organization.
Right, thank you. It wasn't gonna write.
I am anticipating some confusion about
Mhm.
all these various
Yes.
sites and accounts and whether we have
Yes.
what. So can you remind us what said ref is or where we might encounter it?
Well, for example, Meg, you have, Northern New York has a SEDREF account. And it's on all of your FF10s and it's unique to your organization. So, and it also gets linked to SFS. So when we send things over to the controller's office to pay you, they know exactly where to send that payment. Now, they may not be mailing you a check, but they also have your electronic fund transfer stuff.
Yeah, so SEDREF, it's every organization has a listing, but you're not going to have an account. And most people probably don't use the SEDREF database.
Mm-hmm.
We do internally. I mean, and there is a public side to it.
Yeah.
But that's not anything that you need to worry about having an account for. It's just a matter of if your organization isn't listed when we go to do your grant account, to access the actual application, then we'll have to add your organization in. If you are, if you're a library, if you're at a college,
chances are you're in there.
Yeah, chances are you're in there. The organizations that may not be in there are, some of the historical societies, smaller museums, places like that.
I've never received
Right,
any
who've
kind
never,
of funding
if you
from
haven't
us.
applied for a grant in the past, then you're probably not in there.
Right.
Okay, so it's the system that New York State uses to pay us.
Well,
Yes,
the
it's
state
just-
education
yeah,
department
it's
uses,
the
it's an old
education
system.
department.
Yeah, it's a
So-
really
Okay.
old system, but yes, so.
And on the screen where it says your username password is associated with an institution, that's meaningful even if this is, Holly just said this is not an account that we ever would log into.
That's referring to your the LD grants account,
Right.
the account
To the application
to
portal.
the portal.
Yeah,
Okay.
so if I log in, like if you were log in, Meg, it should show the institution you work for. If you change jobs,
Yeah.
you logged in. Until we update that, you're still logging in and applying for the institution you used to work
Now
for.
I follow. Okay.
So
And
yeah.
then just to confirm, if a
Uh-huh.
public library has applied for a construction grant, they have an account
Yes.
in this discretionary grant software that they will be able to access the CP application.
We have to go, you go in and do that, right?
Right, yeah, so not necessarily, so the accounts are associated with a person, so if it's the library director, let's say, is usually going to be the person with the account, they may only have access to the construction. If they log in and they don't see the discretionary grant, they can contact us to then add access to the discretionary grant program as well.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we really only want the director to be the one that's submitting. And that's a hard, fast rule pretty much for the construction program is we want the director. We don't want a clerk or something. This is the person who's responsible for this project. So other people can have write and read access or edit and read, but the director has to be the one submitting.
Okay.
So-
And it's a manual process. Like if someone doesn't have an account, they need to contact.
Yeah.
Yes, there was that form that they can fill out.
Yes. Okay.
We'll look up and we'll find the account if there is one, and if then we'll be able to see, oh, they just don't have access
Yeah.
to discretionary, we'll add that on.
Do you look at the people who say, yes, I'm planning on applying and check then? No?
Oh, the notice of intent?
yeah.
I do not check if they
Okay.
have accounts. I'm gonna assume if you've put in a notice of intent, you already have an account, because you'll then looked at the guidelines, and you usually need an
Okay.
account before you can see the guidelines.
Okay. So here we're just checking, is that good, Meg, I
Yes,
know it's a
thank you,
lot.
Barbara.
Ever since they added pre-qualification and MWBE, it has just thrown people like you wouldn't believe. And it actually, we know it turns people off because it's like, oh, how much bureaucracy, but you don't have to do it every year. So there is that a part of it. So here we do eligibility. Again, we've talked about that. You believe you're eligible. And then you tell us why you're eligible. Again, if you've got questions, give people a call. Wait a minute, I keep clicking.
And can I interrupt here? Because there was another eligibility question that
Mhm.
came in. A historical society's archives
Mhm.
probably eligible if they have a 501c3 status and they're in New York?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Archives are
and-
available. We don't fund anything to do with objects.
Right.
So,
Maybe.
a lot of institutions have a whole bunch of different formats. If you have, say, a painting or something like that, or an object, I would look at Greater Hudson Heritage Network. They do a re-grant program through NISCA. But yeah, definitely archives are eligible. Municipal archives are eligible. Historical societies, libraries, museums, they're all eligible institutions. If they, and
Yeah.
sometimes they don't have like a separate, they might just have one thing that's like their library/archives, but that's all fine.
So Anne, tell me if that satisfies your question. I don't think of the where it's housed is a factor in your eligibility.
What's the other institution she just mentioned?
Greater Hudson Heritage Network. I'll get it into the chat.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, they do have once a year, they do like you can apply for one item for conservation, and they do it through NISCA. I mean, NISCA funds it, but it's done through Greater Hudson Heritage Network, which are down state from us. What county? I can't remember what county they're in now. So this is what you start to fill out. The project manager is the person who, if we call you, can answer questions about the project. So it may not be the director of the archives or the library. It may be someone else who's actually doing the work and can answer questions. We're going to ask, so their name, number, so forth. We already have like the name of the head of the institution because that's in SEDREF. And then their email address and phone number are really important for us. And then the project title. And then on the bottom here, you're going to do like a paragraph of saying a summary description of the project. It's not like a history of your program or your institution. It is, we're planning to rehouse the entire collection of a certain person, archive, or a company or something, and it has these kinds of materials in it. And this is just a general idea. This is used by project staff here to assign reviewers. One of the things this program we have 2 outside reviewers. So it's reviewed by 3 people. One is staff here. The other 2 are outside reviewers. And so when you're looking at who we're going to assign this grant to review, we're looking at the reviewer's expertise and saying who would be the most important person. So if it's a project to reformat or treat some photographs, we're going to be looking for at least one photograph conservator to review this project. So we're really looking for expertise there. So this is helpful to us. And it also gives us a clue is sometimes we go right away, this is not an eligible project that people have submitted. But no matter how great your application is, if it's not eligible, it's not eligible. So please talk to Lauren beforehand. I know we're running short on time, Meg. Are we going to get kicked out or anything?
No.
Okay, because we're running slow. That's okay. So here's what the narrative looks like. You can, as you can see down here in the corner, You can upload documents. So if you want to work on some of the sections, I will say, you can't just dump everything into this first box. You have to break up each section and put it in the box where it's supposed to be. One of the things you'll see here is the review form, and the reviewers are going along and they're being asked, we don't ask them to give it, review on the sides of your institution. But once we get down to 2A, in that order of those sections, they are scoring you. So you don't want it to make it hard for the reviewer to find the information you provided. So make sure that you put it in the right section. And you can move in and out of these sections. These are all links on the left-hand side. You can move in and out. As you can see down here, you can upload documents, or well, we don't have to put documents here, but you can upload your narrative. So if it's in Word, it just comes right in here. Sometimes people find that easier than typing into the boxes. Sort of lets you, especially if you're working more than one person on it. But this is the order in which it goes, and you are being scored on each of these categories. Some are more points than other. So here for the description, we want to know who you are. This is your way of introducing us. We are the archives of this college, and our budget the archives budget is, and the archive staff is. You don't have to tell us the college's staffing or even the library if you're a smaller, and if you're the, you can say the library has 10 staff and we're open hours, and then really focus in on your subgroup within that institution. So people really know that the local history or the special collections or the archive is this. It's got one archivist or a couple volunteers, whatever you have, what your budget is. Hopefully you can break out your budget. Sometimes I know that's hard. Then you're going to tell us the size of your collections. You can tell us in volumes, linear feet, what you have. Obviously, you don't know exactly how many photographs you have, but you can give us a sense. We have approximately 10,000 black and white photographs. Tell us the years they've scanned, if you know that. Formats. So if you have flat maps and you have posters and you have bound materials, this is sort of your collection as a whole you're telling us about here. The amount you required in the previous year and how much money you spent, and any other relevant background. So if you recently did a merge or a weeding or something, changed your collection policy, tell us about all of those things, so that we have large institutions and small institutions applying. We want to treat them equally. So if you're a smaller institution, we want to know that, as opposed to our expectations are a little bit different. If you have any current activities, maybe you have some money every year to buy acid-free folders. If you've had a survey before, please send it as an attachment. If you have a small budget, or sometimes people have a small endowment or a large one, all of that information goes here. Again, just to give us a sense of who you are, what you're really capable of doing as far as preservation is involved. Environmental controls. Do you have heat? Do you have heat and air conditioning? Is it on 24/7? Are you thinking of changing all that? Are you able to close the blinds to your window? Windows, is the space a separate space from the rest of the library where you can close the doors and lock it? Some people turn off the heat in those rooms where they're storing collections. So just give us a general idea of what that's like. Do you have a written disaster plan? Really, really want you to have a disaster plan. I'll say that right up front. So please get working on your disaster plans. You won't be sorry. I can't tell you how many places I've been to over the years who had a disaster and no idea where to start. Any available resources you have. Some people have a disaster supplies on site. They have maybe agreements with organizations around them to help each other out during disasters. Whatever you might have. Security. Security is another section we're looking for. Theft, and we want to know what you're doing to prevent theft. And everybody talks about their users. You also need to talk about your staff. About half of all thefts are by staff. We've had it here. It was staff who stole. Any problem, what are your security? Do people have to sign in, leave their bags outside of the library? Do they, do you have people watching at all times? What are you doing for security? Do you have alarms? All the usual things, locks on the doors, who has access? You shouldn't have everybody have keys to everything. Just general thing. And again, there's some great videos that we have in training on security that you can watch and give you a sense of what you should be doing. And again, more of your institutional. Do you participate in any sort of cooperative projects, share staff or facilities? Sometimes people have bought a piece of equipment and they share it with other institutions around them. Do you share bibliographic databases or participate in regional preservation activities? So again, this is sort of basic stuff. Obviously, access is important. There's no point in preserving materials if nobody can get to them. So what are your hours? Your number of patrons can be the number of people who walk through your door, who email you, however they come into your collections and you respond to their requests is fine. Obviously, sometimes you can't loan things, but maybe you make photocopies for people who want them. A lot of the stuff that's in a lot of your collections probably does not circulate outside of the building. That's perfectly acceptable. That's part of your security, but you really, how do you let people get access to this or get copies? And, they can come in US mail, email, however, we count them all. That has changed since I started 32 years ago. They were all letters back then, or a few phone calls. We want to know what kind of cataloging or other bibliographic controls you have. We don't expect you to have microfilms, cataloged everything in your collection or have finding aids for everything. I've never heard of anyone having that. So just talk about what you have and what you need and, how you're working through it. And this is not like you don't have to be a perfect institution to apply for these grants. Don't feel like you have to be able to say a lot about everything, but tell us what you do know. Who owns the collections that you apply for? You must own. If they are owned by another organization and they are giving you permission, there is a cooperative agreement form that you can get them to sign off to say, yes, we know this is happening and we agree to it. Pretty simple. This is sometimes one sentence. We own this collection that we're applying for. That's all we need to see. Now, this part of the application is worth more points. So I always like to mention that to people. Why is this worth preserving? What is it that you have? Why does it need preservation? So the subject area, the formats, here we want specifically what you're applying for the grant for. The formats, the quantities, and the condition and preservation problems. Are there damage to maps? Are the pages brittle? Were there previous repairs done and there's tape on things? Well, any kind of thing you can see that's a problem for that collection. The bindings are broken. You kind of want to talk about that. You don't have to tell me exactly how many, unless you're going to do treatment, you don't have to know exactly every single detail. If you're going to do like a conservation treatment, then obviously you have to know because the conservator had to have given you an estimate of what the work was going to cost. And then why is it important? Why is it worth preserving? So how is it, why is it important to your institution? What kind of use are researchers showing in your collection? What are they using the collections to do? A lot of things that were collected for one reason are often used later on for a different type of research. Has anybody ever used this collection for research or publication? If there's informational value or artifactual value or both. We don't particularly care about the dollar value of the materials. Sometimes people have that done. It doesn't really mean anything because you're not going to sell it. It just doesn't, what we want to know is why is it a value to New York State? Doesn't have to be about New York State, but why is it valuable to your collection and why do you have it? And how is it used for research? So then we get to your plan of work. You need a timetable, a beginning and ending date, when you're going to hire or execute a contract with folks, schedules for existing staff. You may have staff that are sort of overseeing the project. They're putting some time in. Some, they're handling any contracts. And then there may be folks who are working on the project who we're not funding, but are doing, say, intellectual control. You can put all of that in there. I will say that anything in here that you're asking, anytime you're asking for money from us for some activity, it should be mentioned in the narrative somewhere. We'll be looking for that. So then you're going to tell us who's involved. You have a project manager, what's their role? If you're hiring someone to do some work on site, how much are you paying them? How long are they going to be working for you? Existing staff, how many hours are they going to put towards this project? Any consultants or vendors? If you're hiring consultants and vendors, all the staff, you should include their resumes. If you're hiring consultants and vendors, you're going to get from them their resume or information about their company and a bid. You need to get 2 bids for these projects and then pick one before you finish your application and tell us why you chose that. We want you to choose the most qualified vendors and consultants that you can. You're not required to take the lowest bid. And that comes up a lot. Some institutions want you to do that, but we do not. We don't want you to hire someone like a local photographer to do the work on creating new prints. We want you to hire someone who does preservation quality work. You can call us here. We don't have lists of vendors or consultants, but we can tell you about people who've worked on previous projects that were approved. But we don't do lists. It's a very complicated thing.
If you skip a screen, not in between, yeah, B for plan of work, go back one more. There you go.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Holly. So, work to be performed, very specific. And of course, you'll be attaching any work plans from vendors, materials and techniques to be used, and vendors' costs, proposals, and cost estimate. And you can attach those proposals and estimates to the application. You must actually attach those to the application. Okay, and contribution of time. This is again where we're looking at what are you giving to the project, so you can use it as can be part of this existing staff time they'll spend. If you are putting any money into it, you're going to tell us here. You will tell us again in the budget, but you put it in here as sort of this money is paying for blah blah blah. Just again, so everything that's in the narrative is in the budget, and everything that's in the budget is in the narrative. I can't tell you how many times something's missing. These are the kinds of things you're going to attach. Any bids, resumes, your institutional authorization form. That's someone who's the head of the organization who's saying, yes, I approve this grant application. And sign offs. If you're doing microfilming, the vendor has to sign our microfilm guidelines form, MWBE forms. If the project's over 20, is it still 25,000?
Mhm.
Yep. So this sort of shows you how to add a document. It's pretty easy, I have to say. I think even I, who's not a techie, so you select a document to upload, and we take all these different formats. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. You can then give it a short description. So sometimes your own internal files are really long names. You can put like, ABC vendor bid. And then you clicked upload. So everyone says it's easy. I mean, I did it when we created the program. This is the budget. So some people get a little confused by this. There's 3 columns. There's the project total, there's your institutional contribution, and then there's the grant request. So here's what a budget looks like. You add people here, you just keep, and you can put in there the project total.
If you click, will it show? Yeah.
Yeah, and then if you're not asking us for the money, it's under institutional contributions. And how much you're asking the state. So sometimes people are paying for part of it and they're asking us to pay for other of it. When I approve your project, I'm going to fill out the amount approved. At the end of your project, you're going to fill out your expenses that you actually spent, that you're asking us for. So you see here the name of the person, their title, institutional contribution, amount requested. And then in the narrative, you're going to say, what is this person doing for the, and that they weren't full-time, they're working these extra hours doing this for the project. We have different kinds of categories here. So you'll see that. And then it all gets sort of totaled up. You want to keep hitting save as you go through. So we break it down to personnel services, employee benefits, contracted services, supplies and materials, and travel. Here is the employee benefits if you're asking for any of that from us as well. It does a lot of the math for you, the system, so you'll see that when you're in here. Here's the consultant, what they're going to do, their pay amount, and of course you're going to have attached their bid. Or if it's a contracting firm, 4,000, I mean, I don't know about pieces, frames, but again, this is what you're asking for us to pay for. These are eligible expenditures. You may have a lot of supplies, you're going to list them all. You can't just say lots of supplies. You have to break them all out and tell us who they're from. If you want to screen grab from some of the vendors and include that to just so we can see what this really means. It helps if you tell me it's Gaylord or Hollinger because I can go to their site and look it up. But screen grab is great too. So this is pretty straightforward. And then this is the authorization form that's signed. You can see here, president of the application, CEO, whatever they're called, and then the director of the library of the archives. And then when you're all done with this, you hit the submit button. Please remember to hit the submit button. Sometimes we have people who forget.
And yeah, and it must be submitted.
Or we
to-
can't take it.
Yes.
Because it has to be submitted by 5 p.m. of the day it's due. If you hit the submit button at 5:10, you will not be able to submit. The system will not allow you to do that, even 5:02. So submit by 4 o'clock, just in case something goes wrong. The only time, there are 2 times that we have, no, 1 time, I think 1 time in all the years was right after 9/11 that we extended the deadline for people. Because the mail, those of you who remember, there was the anthrax stuff that came afterwards was causing all these problems. And the governor said everybody could have their deadlines extended. So we did. And then it wants you to confirm that you're submitting it. There's a link here down at the bottom to get to the whole thing if you want to print that. So you might just want to, it will tell you if you left something blank that you need to put something in, just so you didn't forget to fill out a section. Okay, and then the FS10s are pre-filled out for you. If something here is wrong, give Holly a call again. What you should see in here is only what you're asking us to pay for, not your own cost that you're contributing. So you'll see everything broken out and they'll show up here. It's all filled out for you. And then all these little directions for you. And it's all added up for you. Up here is your agency code. We talked about that. That's the same as your said ref number. Here's the project number. This is an important number that you want to remember, that 305-17123. 307 tells us it's the Conservation Preservation Discretionary Program. The rest, the year, the middle number is the year, and then the last set of numbers is unique to your project. This number is important to you because when you get paid, it will come to you either, depending on how you sign up, electronic fund transfer mainly, or a check. It will not say on that check that it's for the Conservation Preservation Program. It will be 90% of this amount here, but on that form under the invoice number will be this number here, this 305. So that tells you, If you work in a small institution, it's not a big deal, but if you're working in a bigger institution, sometimes it comes to your institution and nobody knows what to do with this money. If your institution is also getting other money from the state, the comptroller's office will bundle payments, but all those invoice numbers will be there. So that's how you know it's for you. So when you know that you're getting a grant, please let your finance people know that this is coming. Usually when we receive the FS10s, you'll have sent these in and mail them into us. So you're going to do 3 copies, sign them in blue ink, mail them into us. Holly will handle all that. When you get your award, we'll process all those and send them on for payment. So you won't know when we sent them, but it won't be long after you get your award letter. This is the payee form that Holly mentioned. Do they have to have an FEIN number?
Yeah, they have to, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, you gotta have
So,
an FEIN number.
But the legal name of your organization, not the popular name. You have to have a FEIN number.
You won't get a vendor ID if you don't have an FEIN.
Yeah. So you have to have that. Do they have to do the SAM, the UEI?
No,
You don't have to do that.
that's only if you're getting federal funds, which these
They're
are.
state funds. These are all state funds. So, and then this stuff here, get it signed, mail it in to us. Holly's going to talk about MWBE,
Okay.
and we're really late.
Yes.
We had a lot of questions.
We have a couple more that might be kind of quick.
Okay,
related to
you want
some
to
of
do
the-
those now? Okay.
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Then people, if they
The
have to go, they can
timeline,
go.
you mentioned like the 5 p.m. deadline. Do you know what the
Yep.
date is for the next round? When
We
when they
don't
do-
because it still hasn't been approved by our contracts. We're still waiting for approval. So we don't like to set the date because we want to give people I like them to have at least 3 months to apply because if you're going to get estimates from vendors, that can take time. So our goal is always December, but we often don't make, let's see, we're already in September, October, November.
Yeah, it will probably not be as late as it was this year. This year's was March. It will be earlier than that.
Yeah.
It's probably, going to be late fall before the applications open.
Yeah, it has to go we have to get attachment, what they call attachment approval. It's sort of out of our hands once they send it, we send it.
Yeah.
And they don't want it too early. So we're kind of stuck.
If your organization is not on the NYLINE listserv,
That's a good place.
I suggest signing up for that because we always send out the announcement of the grant opening on the NYLINE listserv.
Yeah.
So you can sign up for that right on the state library's website.
Meg, do you guys send those out on your own listservs? when
Yeah,
it's open?
yeah,
Some
that's
people do,
hard
some
to,
don't.
yeah,
yeah.
it's harder to control.
Yeah,
Um,
okay.
Does the grant require matching funds or those institutional conservation? Is that
Yeah,
contribution?
we don't have a set matching fund amount because they're small grants and we know that a lot of these small organizations can't afford a lot. So we allow staff time we don't have a set amount we're looking for.
Yep.
Just looking, and that's why that intro part is so good because, if you're the Metropolitan Museum of Art, we're expecting a little bit more than a local historical society in the way of matching staff.
And
time.
then you mentioned training videos, like one on
Yep.
security and best practices. Can you
Yep.
give any more pointers on where to find that?
They're under DIPSNY, DHPSNY on YouTube.
Cool.
Yeah, we have our own YouTube channel. DIPSNY
Right,
is a product of the state. So the state library and archives pay this vendor to do all this work for us, outreach and training and so forth in the surveys. So they're
Cool. Thank you, Lauren Cardinal, for the link in the chat. And then just to confirm, if a library wants to apply, they're doing that themselves. The system does not
That
do
is correct.
this on behalf. Yep.
No, not unless you want to do the work for them. But we can't pay the system. We have to pay the specific organizations. Yeah.
Becca, we can put the link to get onto NYLINE in the chat also.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Okay. Take it away, Holly, with
Okay, MWB.
MWBE.
Yes, which is Minority and Women Business, Women-Owned Business Enterprise. And as we mentioned before, any grants that are over $25,000 are subject to MWBE requirements. So this here is a link to the, to the forms that will need to be completed as part of the application. I do have some of them. All right, so we'll get to that. We have a link to the directory. One thing to note is that there are other, like New York City has their own directory. Certain counties may have directories. This is, specifically the state's, directory. They have to be, the organizations have to be certified with the state. Okay, so there are 3 ways that you can be in compliance with MWBE, either full participation, requesting a partial waiver, or requesting a full waiver. Okay, and if you do request a waiver, you have to document good faith efforts to find applicable vendors. Okay, the forms will get completed and uploaded into the online application. We used to require them to be mailed hard copy to us, but we are no longer needing original signatures on that because all the forms do get signed. So you're able to just upload them into the application, which is great. Okay. So so the different forms, we have a goal calculation worksheet, and what is in that is basically you're going to put in your total budget, and then there's only certain categories that are subject to MWBE. So if you had salaries, again, like if there was a temporary, if you were hiring temporary staff, that those funds aren't going to be subject to MWBE requirements. So it's basically your purchase services and your supplies, I think are the biggies, travel, that would be subject to the goal, to actual MWBE requirements. And then it's 30%. So there's a calculation rate in the form. It tells you how much what the actual requirement would be. Okay. Your cover letter is just going to have information about your institution and the whether you're going for full participation or a partial or full waiver. Okay, so this chart tells you what, based upon which of the 3 you're doing, what forms you're going to have to complete. So the utilization plan is if you're actually getting an MWBE vendor, okay, that will be, who you're going to be using and for how much. The intent to participate form, that will actually have a spot for the vendor to sign. Okay. Contractor good faith efforts are only needed if you're requesting a partial waiver. So typically, in this program, oftentimes, applicants have to apply for waivers because there just aren't the applicable vendors. Supplies are a little different sometimes. If you're getting certain tables and things, you can find vendors for that. But if you're looking for, paper conservators and different, preservation, specialists, they're just not in the directory. And so you'll sign this form, and then what you will do is you can just print off searches that you put in that did not result in any vendors coming up. And that's fine. That is, that'll work just fine for, kind of documenting that. There's a contractor unavailable certification that, also gets filled out. And on that, there's different reasons why, you weren't able to choose somebody. Again, typically it's just going to be, there are no applicable vendors. Okay. Oops. The request for waiver form and instructions that's just where you're going to put whether you're applying for a partial or a full waiver. If you're applying for a partial waiver, don't worry about filling in a percentage. Just click partial and leave the percentage blank. Our MWBE people will take care of that part of it. And then the staffing plan, regardless, everybody has to complete the staffing plan. And that basically is you're filling out number of staff and certain, demographics that, people fall into. You do not have to fill it out for your entire organization. You can just fill it out for the, your staff working on the project itself. You also don't need to have a vendor, the vendors don't need to complete it. You can, again, look, so if it's just one person, on staff that's acting as the project manager, that's fine. You can just fill it out for that one person. Not an issue. And so when we send out the slides, these links will be, will actually work. Yes, and you can absolutely reach out to me if you have questions on this. And if I don't have the answer, I can get in touch with our MWBE specialists in our contracts unit, and they can, get us the information that you're looking for. Does anybody have any questions on this before move on? So I guess the big thing to know on this is just, it's not, it doesn't have to be a big scary thing. If you need a waiver, you can certainly apply for a waiver. And
Nobody's ever been turned down, have they?
well, you had that. I don't think anybody's ever been turned down. Sometimes our MWBE people will try to find vendors.
No, they're not allowed to. They're not supposed to do that anymore. That happened once.
Yeah.
It was a fiasco.
Well, we did have one where they found a desk. They found so for supplies, but it was a work table.
A work table.
Work
Okay,
table.
I don't know what that was.
But
Okay.
anyways, yes, if the MWE people are trying to say, oh, use this vendor for for actual preservation work or what have you, please contact us.
Yeah.
Especially if it's someone you feel is not qualified for the work that you need done.
Yeah.
There's one question about MBE versus WBE. Is the goal 30% combined?
It is. I know that on some things there's they actually split up the goal between the two. But it really, you just have to worry about the 30%. There's no and it doesn't matter which that it falls under.